Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Prime Cuts number 20. This is the my personal podcast that it's been on hiatus for a few weeks, and I'll address that in a few minutes. But tonight, we're going to do a podcast tonight to wrap up the top 30 cigar of the year list, which actually I never wrapped up. But we'll get into a little more of that in tonight's program. And this episode of Prime Cuts is sponsored by Lane Coffee. Lane Coffee is for those who actually care about the coffee they drink. Just like with cigars, there's quality versus quantity, and both have their place, but Lane Coffee believes in quality. Roasted fresh in individual batches using only 100% specialty coffee from responsible sources. Be sure to visit www.lanecoffee.com to learn more. And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Prime Cuts number 20. It's Will Cooper here in the Sereno Cigar Company studios on this Wednesday, February 21st, 2018. And it's been a while since I've done a Prime Cuts. It's been a little over a month, and there's been a lot of things that have happened. And it wasn't a decision that we were too busy. I opted to put the podcast on hold because there were other activities that were going on, and we were going at a very, very rapid rate. And I think when we were kind of getting to the number one and number two cigars of the year, to be completely honest, we were one of the last lists to come out, and I think everyone was kind of had their fill of number one and number one cigars and cigar of the year lists. So I thought tonight what I'd use is an opportunity to kind of wrap it up a bit, kind of revisit it now a month later. And really, what I'm going to focus on tonight is strictly the number one and the number two cigars. And I've done a series of the Prime Cut podcasts over the past few weeks, actually, probably since December, where I've gone and counted down 30 to number three. So I think for the most part, I'm not going to rehash that tonight. I think, but certainly, you can go check out Cigar Coop. Just click on our Cigar of the Year menu, and you can look at the 2017 Cigar of the Year list and see what happens. But it's good to be back in the saddle here on Prime Cuts tonight. It's been, we've had a very exciting time on Cigar Coop and the primetime shows. We were going at it about a pace of 2 podcasts a week for most of the months. There was a trip to Davidoff in the Dominican Republic as well. So we definitely had a lot of activity going on there. And I thought it was good to focus that activity. And now that we're kind of back at a manageable pace, we could fit in some more of the Prime Cuts podcast, as well as the non-cigar podcast, the Rumor Free Teaser Free Show. But again, I think a few folks mentioned, where's the show been? This is an agile show. It's not a regularly scheduled program like we do on the regular primetime show or the select Tuesdays that we do for special edition, which are those have more of a regular cadence. But these are meant to be more agile when it's a timely thing to do it and where we have a moment to do it. And it was, like I said, one of those things where number one and number two, I kind of felt I wanted to put it off for a few weeks. Did it go a little longer than I thought? Yeah, but I think at the same time, it would kind of allow it to stand out. Let me just I'll get right into it rather than, there's no suspense here at this point because the list has been out for over a month here. And what I want to do is get right into what we're doing on the list here. So let me pull this up here. There we go. So the number two and number one cigars, I'll say this, every year there is a lot of talk about cigars being kind of how can I put it, close number one and number two. I haven't had a case with that on Cigar Coop over the past few years in terms of what's been a close number one or close number two. That hasn't really happened much in the history I've done the list. I can think of maybe one year. I would say 2014 was a very close year. Those were the two number one cigar that year was the Joel Sherman cigar by Nat Sherman, and number two was the Casada 40th anniversary Corona Classica. I think that's a good example of something that was a very, very close race that particular year. But otherwise, I haven't had a super close year. This year was one of those years where it was a close year. Honestly, it was probably that this year was closer than probably that 2014 year, which I viewed as the closest race. The number two cigar of the year was a cigar I really didn't see a lot of. I saw it got a lot of good reviews, but I think we were the only list to have this cigar on there. And there's a few reasons which I'll get into it. And it's the La Aurora 107 Coseca 2006, and specifically that Corona Gorda Especial. And that's very important with this particular cigar, because that cigar blend in that size was excellent. Now, the Coseca 2006, let's talk a little about the background of that cigar. It was an extension off the La Aurora 107 line, which the La Aurora 107 line, it's a nice line. It got a lot of buzz in the early online media days, and I don't know if it's a cigar. I think it's more of a cigar. I think it was the first Facebook, or it's the Twitter cigar. I think it was more popular on Twitter than it was on the stores, but it's a fine cigar. But the La Aurora Coseca 2006 is not that cigar at all. It's branded under the 107 line, which was for La Aurora's 107th year, but not the case at all. It's a completely different cigar. It was a limited edition cigar, and it was limited edition because of the tobaccos that were in the blend. So let's kind of talk about the blend. This featured an Ecuadorian HVA wrapper, Brazilian binder, and a combination of Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers. And I mentioned that Corona Gorda, which is that classic La Aurora 6x47 Corona Gorda. I think that's a beautiful size. That La Aurora just has 47 ring gauge is something that they have just nailed in that 6x47 format. You can argue it's a short Churchill in that case. The Coseca 2006, you've heard that term Coseca a lot this year. Coseca means harvest, and it's typically a vintage of tobacco. And for this particular blend, there were tobaccos from a 2006 vintage that were incorporated into the blend. And it was blended by the one and only Manuel Anoa at the La Aurora factory in the Dominican Republic. It was limited to about 1,000 boxes of size, so it's not a hard cigar. When you have 1,000 box limited edition cigar, it's not necessarily a very hard cigar. You can find it. But I have found the 6x47 Corona Gorda, it seems to be the more popular of those sizes. That's the one that's been kind of the more difficult one to find, so to speak. So in terms of that, I was really blown away by this cigar when it came out. It really shocked me how good this cigar is, because not that the La Aurora 107 was a bad cigar, it was a fine cigar. I think some of the early online media guys put that on a pedestal for various reasons, but I think it was a good cigar, but I just felt this cigar was something that was special. And when La Aurora comes out with a cigar, when Manuel Anoa, he can come out with a really good cigar, and he's done one of the most some of the most epic cigars. If you go back to that Cien Años Maduro, the Especial back in 2013, which was La Aurora has a number one cigar of the year on Cigar Coop. They have a number with that Cien Años Maduro, which is probably one of the greatest cigars ever created. This one is blew me away. It is a cigar that, again, I've had it in the different sizes. I'll be honest, the Corona Gorda Especial stands above those other sizes significantly. Beautiful notes of mixed fruit, cream, earth, natural tobacco. There's some woody notes, a little bit of black pepper. I'd say this is a cigar that starts out medium in strength and moves to medium to full in strength later in the cigar. And I actually think this is a cigar that starts out medium in body, but it actually becomes a very full-bodied smoke in the second half. Certainly in a lot of years, and this is very cliche, this could have been a cigar of the year. Now, a little bit why I don't think this cigar made a lot of lists was because it's kind of the convoluted way we do years on Cigar Coop. So, we start the cigar year on Black Friday of the year, and we concluded on Thanksgiving the following year. A lot of people who did the end of year list, I think, considered this 2000 a 2016 release as opposed to a 2017 release. Um, Add to the fact we use a 2 year window with cigars on Cigar Coop, and this cigar makes the list. Very good cigar. La Aurora just doesn't get the online media buzz that it used to in previous years. This cigar is something I believe it's really special. If you can get your hands on this cigar, and again specifically in this size at 6x47, hopefully folks will agree to what I'm saying. That I think it was the only cigar in 2017 on Cigar Coop to garner the Oasis rating, which we still use the Oasis rating even under the new system. But it was the only cigar in 2017 to be Oasis rated by myself. So I think it's a cigar that really stood the test of time. It all year I had a chance to smoke through these throughout the year. It performed at a very high level, worthy of a number two cigar. And again, I would encourage folks, get your hands on this cigar if you can find them. They're still around right now. And then, of course, the number one cigar of the year. And again, we're not really doing suspense here. I think folks know the Cigar Coop Cigar of the Year. This year, the title goes to Honduras. And it was one of only two cigars out of Honduras that made the list this year. And this year, it was the Aroa, the first 20 years, Colorado 50 by 5. And that's Aroa is the brand made by CLE Cigar Company. And CLE Cigar Company is the company owned by Christian Aroa. Now, the other Honduran cigar that placed on the list down at number 27 this year was also coming from the Aroas, and that was Rancho Luna, but that came from Christian's brother Justo, and Justo actually last year had the number two cigar of the year with the Aladino. So the Aladino Elegantes made our number two cigar of the year. But the Aroa, this was a cigar, I did see it on a lot of lists. What I was a little surprised about, I was surprised that this cigar didn't have, we were the only one I believe to have this cigar at number one. Listen, not only is this cigar the best cigar that CLE's released to date, and I think Christian's done a fantastic job with the brand. But this is the pinnacle of the work he's done, and his track record going back to Camacho, we know what it is. This is a Honduran puro through and through, and really what it came down to is Christian Aroa wanted to work with a particular Colorado wrapper. He had been wanting to put a Colorado wrapper, which is that reddish clay wrapper. Of course, it's using the authentic Corojo. That is something that is, really, I think it's something really special as far as that goes. It's a wrapper that the way the Aroas do it, the Aroas are growing authentic Corojo seeds, so they're not using hybrid seeds. And if you watch the show we did with Bear Duplessis and I did on Primetime Special Edition number 23, we talked about authentic heirloom seeds versus hybrid seeds. And Davidoff certainly a company that uses hybrid seeds, but when it comes to authentic Corojo, I think using those authentic seeds, and there's a lot on Cigar Coop that we've talked about it, and it's kind of the secret sauce that goes into the Aroas. This is an unbelievable cigar. I believe, like I said, I believe it was the best cigar in 2017, hands down. I've used, as folks know, I solicit some third-party input into, particularly when we get into the number one and number two cigars. I give out some cigars to people who don't follow online media and are not on social media a lot, and I want to get their feeling on this. And this was the cigar that I think came through time and time again. I thought it was the 50 by 5 size in the Robusto that really, really shined on this. And again, just the packaging and the presentation. If you're looking at that cigar and you see there's tissue paper on the lower part of that, Christian Aroa doesn't believe in cellophane. Yeah, and he's not a fan of cellophane, so you'll see that tissue wrap on a lot of his cigars right now. We are very, very pleased to announce for the first time tonight on Cigar Coop that we will be having a primetime special edition show on Friday, April 27th, live from Miami, Florida, and we will be with Christian Aroa. And when I say we, is I'll be down there, and most likely Bear Duplessis and Aaron Loomis will be dialing in. And we probably are going to do a primetime daytime show that day. Again, it's just we wanted to work with schedules, and we're very honored. So this looks like it's scheduled right now. I think we have a firm date. We're trying to nail the time down specifically. So stay tuned for that. So we're going to be talking with Christian about this #1 cigar of the year that came out of Honduras. It's a cigar that, look, I put my money where my mouth is with this cigar. I had a few samples that were sent to me when it came out. I was blown away by it. It's a cigar I've gone back, and there's so many good, believe me, there's so many cigars, that not just on the top 30, but cigars that didn't make the top 30 that I've kind of put my money where my mouth is. But this one is a #1 cigar. It's, like I said, it's a cigar that I could enjoy. It's a limited production cigar, so it's not a one and done. They can't produce tons of these. They are gated by the tobaccos, but so to speak, every cigar is sort of limited. Notes of natural tobacco, baker's spice, cedar, earth, and black pepper. There's a wonderful on the retro head. There's like this exotic spice that I really, really like. There's a lot of change ups and permutations with those flavors that I really enjoy. And it's a cigar that has continued to get better and better with age. Not a cigar that's going to overpower you with strengths. So it's not a nicotine bomb. It's not one that's going to weigh very heavy on the palate, the flavors. Medium strength, medium bodied, full flavored. I mean, it's tremendous, tremendous cigar. And that is the 2017 Cigar of the Year on Cigar Coop. Anticlimactic, but I just wanted to have some closing commentary on those cigars. Now, I kind of went back and I kind of every year what I do, and there's going to be an article on Cigar Coop that's going to talk about this, is I kind of look at the trends. Now, the trends are what I ended up landing on the list. And it's kind of a way I take a personal assessment and look at and saying, did I cover how did I cover it? Where was my profile? Where did I think the best cigars were coming from? And I looked at a few things. There's a couple categories that I'll talk about on the show tonight. First, let me talk about country of origin. Now, typically on the Cigar Coop list, it is dominated by Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic, and it's very close each year. So, I mean, it's close, in terms of maybe one or two cigars difference in terms of the number of cigars that land from that particular country. This year, it was not close. This year, 17 cigars came from Nicaragua and only 10 from the Dominican Republic. So the other three, 2 of them came from Honduras, which were the 2 Aroa entries, and 1 came from Costa Rica. What I kind of thought was really interesting, when I kind of went back again and looked at this list, is when I look at the top 3 cigars for 2017 on the Cigar Coop list. I'll go in reverse order. The number 3 cigar was the Gaia Maduro Torpedo by Bombay Tobacco, made at Tabacos de Costa Rica in Costa Rica. So that was the one Costa Rican cigar that made the list. Number 2 cigar, the La Aurora 107 Coseca 2006 Corona Gorda Especial from the Dominican Republic. And the number 1 cigar is the Aurora, the first 20 years, Colorado 50 by 5 by CLE Company in Honduras. So your top 3 countries are Honduras, the Dominican Republic, and Costa Rica. There was not a Nicaraguan cigar, despite the fact that Nicaragua dominated that top 30. There was not a Nicaraguan cigar in the top 3 this year. Kind of just interesting. It's not something I consciously thought of, but it's something that, again, once I kind of lay this out and kind of lay out where this is all going to go, I kind of looked at that and I said, that's kind of odd. I don't know if anyone had a list like that. So, and that's kind of, I think that just goes to show that even though Nicaragua is definitely, look, I think they're doing some great things right now. But it's kind of showing again that there's a lot of cigar makers capable of making a very good cigar. And I think it also kind of shows what's going on in Honduras, as well. The Aroas definitely have a good stronghold, but there's great cigars coming out of other factories. Camacho is one of those, certainly doing some great stuff as well. The second thing I looked at was some of the factories. And if folks followed the Primetime Awards, we gave out 2 Factory of the Year awards. The Factory of the Year award for Small Factory of the Year went to La Zona, and the Factory of the Year for Large Factory went to Plasencia. Now, keep in mind with the Factory of the Year, it was a 3-person panel consisting of Aaron Loomis, Bear Duplessis, and myself. So I was only 1/3 of the vote with those awards. When I looked at the Coop list, there were 5 factories that kind of stood out this year. Each of these factories had 3 cigars land on the list. So the 5 factories, La Zona was one of them. Tabsa, the factory from Casa Fernandez, had 3. Tabacalera La Alianza, the factory by Ernesto Perez Carrillo Jr., had 3. Tabacalera Fernandez, the factory by A.J. Fernandez, had 3. And then Davidoff had 3 as well. 2 were coming from the actual Davidoff factory. 1 was coming from Occidental, but I'll kind of group those together as well. So that was 15 of the 30 cigars came from those 5 factories. And, I can look at those, and I could say, I think Tabsa still was on a lot of cigars from Tabsa were on people's lists this year. I think there were certainly a lot of cigars from A.J. Fernandez's list this year that were on there. Certainly La Zona. Davidoff, not so much. I don't think there was as much Davidoff. I think there's less Davidoffs that are reviewed by the online media, and I think that leads to less Davidoffs on the list. EPC was a big question. I was shocked. I was almost flabbergasted. I really didn't see a lot of the EPC stuff come out of there. 3 different companies from EPC actually landed on the list this year. It was on our list. Ernesto Perez Carrillo Jr. had the original Rebellious from his own company, EP Carrillo, out of that factory. MLB Cigar Ventures had the David P. Elric on the list. And Oliveros did that project with the Oliveros All-Stars, landed on the list as well. So I thought it was a really good year for Tabacalera La Alianza. I think the only ones I really saw out of that factory were maybe some of the MLB stuff and maybe some of the Crown Head stuff last year. So those were kind of 2 of the trends that I thought were happening this year with the list. And I'll have some more details. I'll be going through some wrappers and some other things on Cigar Coop. I won't exactly bore everyone here tonight with that because we can go through a lot of stats. So kind of said held off on that for a little while on that. Will Cooper here. I'm in the Sereno Cigar Company studio with Prime Cuts number 20. My personal podcast, the Agile podcast, the Unpodcast, whatever you want to call it. And I'm kind of just putting the icing on the cake, and we're finally going to close out. Now I'm officially closing out Cigar of the Year for 2017 on the podcast. I wanted to just kind of have a nice little package and have that number 1 and number 2 cigar. It's been a rough couple of weeks, obviously, in the world. I encourage everyone in the cigar community. Let's have healing. Let's show everyone in the cigar community that we all get along here, and let's kind of keep all the minutia off social media, and let's kind of just get back to debating the good things like cigars. And those are my 2 cents on that for tonight. Few other things going on I wanted to mention as well, and I haven't talked about this. I've talked about it on the primetime shows a couple of times, and I think folks are aware that on January 26th, Gary Layden, my friend and co-host of the Smooth Drawers radio show, passed away. It came, Gary, I think you've heard, folks that he had been sick for a while, and we kind of kept that quiet. But it was still a shock that he did pass when he did. Um, the show has gone on hiatus since then, and I don't know what the future holds for that show. I can tell a couple of things I can share here, and I'll share it. I'll be very candid here. So the first thing, there is going to be a tribute, a final. There is going to be one more Smooth Drawer show. It's going to be broadcast on March 24th from Jacksonville, Florida. I will not be able to attend or be a part of that show. I have a personal commitment, and a lot of this is, but I encourage folks obviously to tune into the show. I do believe Nick Sirius will be on that show as well. A lot of this is because the ESPN station is giving us, or giving Smooth Drawers, one last chance to kind of say goodbye to the fans. I wish I could be a part of that show. I cannot be a part of that show, and my hands are tied with that. But I certainly encourage folks to listen. Is there talk about bringing Smooth Drawers under the Primetime Network? It's been discussed. I don't see it as a realistic right now as something I can take on. So I'm not ruling it out at some point, but regardless, it would change. I think it would be a different product if we did do that. But it is something. The door is open, is what I'll say. But it's not. I have a very full plate. I think folks know. With primetime special edition, and of course Cigar Coop and day job responsibilities. That it would be an enormous undertaking. So I don't think it's a practical solution to do at this time, but we're not ruling it out. It's certainly not something I can own and move forward with. So is there a chance of contributing? I'm looking at all the options right now with Nick Sirius and Robbie, but I don't know the answer to that. But I will say it's right now, I would look at that. At least the Smooth Drawer show as we know it is going to kind of come to a close. There'll be one more show on March 24th in Jacksonville, Florida. Again, I would encourage folks to listen to that show. Like I said, it's unfortunate, but a lot of it was driven from the radio station that's doing it. So we had to kind of work with their schedule, and they do. It's an ESPN station, so. But it's very, very kind that they're going to give, I think, the Smooth operators a chance one more time. But, obviously, we do miss Gary very, very much. I'll kind of say this. I don't know. I don't have a baseline to tell people what it's. We in Cigar Media haven't lost other Cigar Media members before. We could say Nick Wing, who was a British journalist, passed away about a year ago. Nick was an icon, but a lot of us didn't work side by side with Nick. If you want to consider Gary Arts Media, a lot of people will close to Gary Arts. That's not a knock. If you want to consider Gary Arts Media, I suppose you can do that. Some people knew him. But in terms of a partnership and a team setting, it's the first time that I think the Cigar Media has been hit with something like this. It hit very close to home to me. We haven't gone through this before, so it's where suddenly someone's just gone, and who was the heart and soul of that show, and put so much time into that show. So it's a tough thing right now, and any decisions of what's made going forward, it can't be taken lightly. Gary did that show almost full time, so for me to make it a part-time thing, I want to make sure that the quality of that show from both a production and a content standpoint is there. And like I said, it's just very, very hard to absorb that under my umbrella right now. So if there may be some other options that are being looked at right now, but right now, I'd look forward to that Jacksonville show. So anyway, before we kind of go, I want to give folks a little bit of a preview of what's coming up on Prime Time. So we have a show on Thursday night, February 22nd. That's tomorrow night. Originally, this was going to be a week off. for scheduling. We turned out we could get a show in, and we got a really good guest, a guy who I think has really risen through the ranks of the cigar industry. I've seen this guy grow, and he's risen through it at one company, which is Cubanacon Cigars, Lawrence Miltenberger. We're gonna talk all about Cubanacon cigars. We'll ask all the questions that I think are on your mind, and we'll certainly get an idea of where Cubanacon's going. And I think they have some really exciting projects coming out right now. So it's something I look forward to that interview. Lawrence is a great guy, and they're a sponsor now of Primetime Special Edition as well as Cigar Coop. So very, very happy to have these guys on board. Next week we're going to have Special Edition number 24. And the guest for Special Edition number 24 is Claudio Stroy of Mombacho Cigars. So we had Claudio on before IPCPR on the regular primetime show. We're moving him to Special Edition. We'll get Bears. Bear will have a chance to kind of interview these guys as well with me. So that's primetime Special Edition number 24 next Tuesday, the 27th of March, and then March 1st. It's the interview I've been wanting to do for a long time. I've waited a long time to interview this guy. And it's going to be Mike Giannini of Ventura Cigars. I'm a big fan of what Mike has done. I have a lot of respect for Mike. He's a very I'll say he's a polarizing guy in the cigar industry. But you can't argue he's had an impact on the cigar industry in the last 15 to 20 years. We're going to talk with Mike, and he'll be on Primetime episode 44 on March 1st. So really looking forward to that. Anyway, we are going to wrap up this edition of Primetime. Excuse me, I'm mixing up my shows. Prime Cuts number 20. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we will see everybody tomorrow night. Have a good night.